The title of the sermon today is What's the Plan? What's the plan? Okay, what's the plan? And how many of you would say that you are planners? You like planning things? Raise your hand. You like to plan? How many of you are just kind of like the fly by the seat of your pants type people? You just go, roll with it? That's kind of how I am. See, it worked out good because my wife's a planner. I'm not. My wife is a hardcore planner. Like, if you want, now she ain't doing it for free. There's something that my grandpa taught me before he passed away. He said, if you do something good, don't do it for free. Okay? That's good life advice to live by. If you do something real good, don't do it for free. But if you ever need something planned, like a party, she's got you. She'll do awesome. But I'm not a big-time planner. Never have been. And one of the things that, one of the ways I want to start off this sermon was to talk about kind of my backstory. So if you've been to any of our CP 101 classes, 201, I teach 201. If you've sat through the 201 class, you know that one of my things here at the church that I do is I plan services, kind of the strategy behind some of the things that we do and make sure we kind of stay along the lines of our strategy for ministry. That's kind of my thing. So I like to, whenever I get up here and talk, which I don't speak a whole lot, but when I do, I always try to come at it from the perspective of nobody in the room knows me, okay? Because I want anybody that walks in, if this is your first time, I don't want you to kind of feel like you're on the outside looking in if I throw out all these hilarious jokes and you just don't get them, okay? I'm just going to assume that if I say something and you don't laugh and it was meant to be funny, that you're new here and you just don't know, okay? But I figured what I was going to do today is, since we're talking about plans, I wanted to give you some backstory on the plans that I had for my life. How many of you would say that you had some very strategic plans for your life at one point or another? Raise your hand if you feel like you had some plans laid out. So here was my plan. So I graduated from Southview High School, 2004, class of 2004. That was right before Grace Creek High School opened. So we had a huge graduating class. We had almost 500 people, which is really large for this area. And to be perfectly honest, and I don't say this arrogantly, even though it's going to sound that way, high school was not hard for me. How many of you would say high school really wasn't very hard? I know it's hard for some people. I'm going to let you in on a secret. For all the students in the room, I'm going to give you some advice on how to get through school. Go to school, okay, number one. Turn in your work on time. Be respectful to your teachers, and guess what? You'll get through it. There you go. If the students in the room, you don't get anything else out of what I said, I just gave you some golden nuggets right there. Go to school, turn in your work on time, and be respectful of your teachers, and guess what? You're going to move right along to the next grade. I promise you they don't want to see you again, okay? But for me, coming out of high school, this was my thing. I grew up in a pastor's home my entire life. I was in the womb in church. My dad was a pastor. And I saw all the bad side of church. Everybody talks about they hate politics. It ain't nothing like church politics. I saw the dirty stuff. I saw the bad stuff. I saw all the bad things. Now, I saw good things, but how many of you know it's a lot easier to remember the bad stuff? So I saw a lot of bad stuff growing up in church, and just saw how vindictive people were and two-faced and all this kind of stuff. And I decided from an early age, I come from a long line of preachers, people working in the church. I decided, ain't going to do it. Not for me. Don't want anything to do with it. For me, I've always played the drums, and growing up in church, I started playing when I was about 8 or 9 years old. So that's as close as I wanted to get to the center of the stage, was to the far right. I decided that was going to be my line. I wasn't going to come any further than where I'm standing right now. That was what I was going to do. So this was my plan. My plan was this. I decided what I'm going to do is I want to do something where I make a lot of money, right? And I was like, I'm a smart guy, got real good grades in school, so I'm going to be a pharmacist, not a street pharmacist, just a regular pharmacist. Okay, let's make sure we get. Yeah, there is a difference. I know we've probably got some people in here that at one point or another were street pharmacists, and it's okay. We accept everybody here. But I wanted to be a pharmacist. At least I thought that's what I wanted to be. So I applied to Campbell University, got in. I ended up graduating out of like 500 people in my class. I was number 13, which is pretty good. And so I applied to Campbell, got in, and got a academic scholarship, not a full one because that place is expensive and they don't give away money very easily. But they gave me a partial academic scholarship. Even with that, it was still really expensive. But I decided, I grew up in a pastor's home. We was poor. Church folk, working in the church, you don't make much money. I was like, I told backstory. So whenever I first started dating my wife, anybody ever watch Friends? Okay, you know how Joey doesn't share food? I don't share food either. I still don't like sharing food. Okay, I hate sharing food. So one of the first times me and my wife went out, she started eating off my plate, and I thought, well, this is the end of this. My whole thought process was, I got a decent job. I can buy you whatever you want. If you want one of these, I'll buy one. Just don't touch my food. Because I told him, my mom and dad, they always wondered why I was that way. Because we were so poor at one point in time when I was a little kid that it was a struggle to have food sometimes. And so I decided once I got old enough and we could afford food, nobody's taking mine. Okay, nobody is taking my food. But that's kind of how I was. All right, I didn't like sharing. But anyway, getting back to the original story. So I decided, I'm going to go to Campbell. I don't want to be poor no more. Pharmacists make really good money. I was like, 4 years, I'll have me a good degree, a good job. So I get to school, and the first semester of school, now I'm going to be honest with you, I took my own advice. I was very respectful to teachers, turned in all my work on time, paid attention, did well on everything. When I got to college, I realized I didn't know how to study. That is the thing. That is the thing. So I just assumed if I went to class and I listened and I took some notes that I was going to be fine. Well, when I got that first test and I got a 27, I realized this ain't going to be the same story. This plan is already going off the tracks. So first semester of college, I ended up with 2 Fs, a D, and a C. That's not a good GPA, guys. Going from like a 4.25 GPA in high school to a 0.75 or something like that? Not good. This is how bad it got. So towards the end of the semester, my parents had found out. I tried to get home and scoop up the notice in the mail that I wasn't doing good. Didn't time it out right. But whenever that notice got sent home, my parents, I thought they were going to kill me. But they said, why don't you get a tutor? I'm like, for somebody that's never struggled with school, that was kind of a humbling thing. I was like, all right. So I found the smartest person in my class, in one of my chemistry classes. Paid him to tutor me for like 2 or 3 weeks before the next test. This is how, they're laughing because they know the story. This is how bad it was, okay? I took this test. Not only did I fail it, but my tutor failed it. I made him dumber. I made him not know chemistry anymore. So after that, he decided, he was like, I need to get away from this guy. He's bad luck. This dude, up until this point, had got 99s, 100s on this test, and the teacher, I saw after she handed out the test, he went to the teacher and was talking to her, and she was asking him all kinds of questions. What happened on this test? And he was over there looking at me. I'm like, but that was my plan, okay? And it went off the rails real quick. I figured out it didn't matter how much I studied. Being a pharmacist was not for me. It was not in my plan. Fast forward a few years later, and I graduate from college. I crammed 4 years of college into 6, and finally got a degree. And I met my wife. This is my wife right here. Isn't she gorgeous? I look pretty good too. but she's gorgeous. That picture was taken about a month ago. We were in Ireland. I really miss being in Ireland. Gosh, y'all. I'm thinking we need to start a Cross Point, Ireland campus. I'll head it up. I will head it up. I will step forward and bear that cross, okay? But that's my wife, and I love her to death. She's wonderful. I met my wife, and we started developing a plan, right? I also have, if you don't know me, I also have a baby boy, and his name is Gus, okay? That's my baby boy. We got more animals, but he's the one I like the most, if I'm being honest. Everybody's got, if you got more than one pet, you got one you like the most. Kind of like you got a favorite child if you got more than one. Like, Marissa is my dad's favorite, and I'm my mom's. We all know it. She don't want to say it out loud, but she knows. But so we met, and, it was wonderful. It was great, and we had all these plans. I remember proposing to her, and she gave me a weird look when I asked her to marry me, which scared me. I thought I knew she was going to say yes, and then she gave me this look like, for real? Am I about to get a no? But she said yes. So we had all these plans for what we were going to do with our life together. And we had there's some people in the room that were actually at our wedding. We got married in Georgia. My wife's from Georgia. And so we got married in Perry, Georgia, which is where they actually have the National Fair. It's beautiful there. We got married on a plantation outside. It was extremely hot. It was during the middle of the summer. But we even had an air-conditioned tent for our reception. It was wonderful. Like, I didn't have anything with planning. I didn't do anything for planning that wedding. It was wonderful. That's all you need to know. I didn't have anything to do with it. She let me pick one thing. It was the song that we walked out to. Other than that, she didn't ask me anything. So that's just the way that goes, I guess. But so we're on our honeymoon. Hallelujah. We were on our honeymoon. And then I remember one night we were sitting at dinner. And my wife looks at me and she goes, "Something's wrong with my dad." I said, "What? Like, why are we talking about either one of your parents on our honeymoon, number one?" But she's like, "There's something wrong with my dad." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I started doing this thing. I'm like, there's nothing. I thought maybe she had a bad dream, something like that. And so we had all these plans for our life. We had planned on being here, and she was going to go to law school. My wife got a pre-law degree. She wanted to, she had all these big aspirations for being a lawyer. And I remember where I was at. I was at the Hope Mills Walmart. I walked in the Hope Mills Walmart when her mother called me and told me her father had terminal cancer. That was 6 weeks after our honeymoon. And that messed up the plan just a little bit. It messed it up really bad. Seeing the person that you love the most go through something like that, it's rough. How many of you have ever been through or known somebody that's been through something similar to that? And you have an idea of what the plan is. You think you know what the plan is, and you realize, I don't know if this is the plan. Everybody at some point or another has asked this question: does God have a plan for me? Has anybody ever wondered if God actually has a plan for you? I've thought it all the time. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to step back a little bit, and we're going to look at the 4 categories of people that we have. Everybody, I think, doubts the plan or wonders about the plan for their life. And so there's pretty much everybody in the room at some point or another, maybe even right now, you fall into one of these categories. Maybe you say, "I don't know the plan. I don't know what the plan is." Maybe you're a new Christian. Maybe you're new to just coming to church in general. You haven't really developed a relationship with God. That's fine. But maybe you're sitting here and you're like, I just don't know the plan. If there is one, I don't know it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. I don't know where I'm supposed to go next. I don't know the plan. To be perfectly honest, all these things that I'm about to tell you, I've felt at some point or another. Second thing is, maybe you believe, I don't believe there's a plan at all. I don't believe there is a plan. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. This is the category that I fell into after my father-in-law got cancer. The first 1.5 to 2 years of our marriage was not what we wanted it to be. We didn't get the honeymoon phase of a marriage. We had our typical problems that every marriage has and whatnot. It wasn't a lack of love or any problem like that, but You see, what happened was the plan was she was going to go to school. Well, that got put off. And because her father was in Georgia, her mother had to work to have insurance to pay for all these treatments he was going to get. My wife, she started going back and forth to Georgia, sometimes twice a week to Georgia. So for the first year and a half of our marriage, my wife was traveling back and forth to be with her dad and help out, which is exactly what I wanted her to do. But we didn't see each other very much. That was not how I imagined the first part of our marriage going. That was not the plan. And so there was so many times when I was at home by myself, when she was in Georgia, and I was wanting to hang out with my wife after work, that she wasn't there and I was in the house by myself, that I wondered, there must not be a plan, because this don't feel like there is one. Maybe you're in this category. Maybe you say, I missed the plan. Maybe some of you are like, I felt like my life was on track. I was doing well. I did good in school, and I got a job offer, and I got this one job offer that I always wondered if I should have took it, and it just feels like I'm not living in the right plan. Maybe I took the wrong job. Maybe there was a wonderful plan that came through, and I just completely missed it. I believe there was one, but I also think that I missed it at some point. And lastly, the one that I think a lot of us fall into is I messed up the plan. How many of you have ever felt like you've just messed the plan up? I mess the plan up every day. There's a plan that I have for my day. I'll have a plan for my day, and it gets messed up very early in the day at some point. If you've got kids, I can guarantee you that your plans get messed up all the time. If you've got a lot of kids like Vernette, Dr. Gilbert, your kids mess up your plans all the time, mainly the boys, messing the plans up. All right? Plans get messed up all the time. And there's been many times that I felt like I was living in the plan. Once I finally got away from, I decided I wasn't going to be a pharmacist, I started becoming more open to the idea of being involved more in church. And, here I am. And I decided to venture a little bit further towards the center of the stage. I don't always feel, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, it doesn't make me nervous to stand in front and talk in front of people, but it's not the thing that I'm the best at here. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I enjoy it. I enjoy being up here and talking, but my thing is I like being back there with those guys. I like the behind-the-scenes stuff. I've always been that kind of person. But for a lot of you, you fall in right now to where you think you just messed the plan up. And basically what's happened is your life doesn't look like what you thought it would look like. Anybody ever thought of that? Your life doesn't look like what you thought it should look like. There's this thing going around on the internet. It's always, and it's fun to do. Fun to Google this. There's a hashtag. It's called What I Wanted versus What I Got. Okay? If you ever get some free time, just Google those words, and you will laugh for hours and hours. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. So this first picture right here, this is what this lady ordered. Okay? This is what she wanted, which I don't get it because that's like, you got mittens down here, like that's like a jacked up hoodie. Like you want the hands to go all the way through, right? I don't know, that's just like something extra that some of these girls that like pumpkin spice lattes would get. But that's what they were expecting to get, and this is what they actually got right here. You got to check the sizing, guys, all right? That was probably an extremely cheaply made version that came straight from China. And they didn't read the reviews, apparently. Now, one of my favorite things to do, and because I'm a little bit demented, I guess, is I like to Google bad tattoos. I like tattoos. I've got tattoos. I'm going to get me a face tattoo before too long. Another life advice, don't get face tattoos. You can get them anywhere else, that's fine. But I love Googling bad tattoos. Okay, it's fun to me. I guess I get a little bit of pleasure out of other people's misery. But I was Googling some tattoos that were interesting, and so this one right here was what it was supposed to be. Okay, they wanted a picture of Timon and Pumbaa, and it was supposed to say Hakuna Matata. It means no worries for the rest of your days, except for this tattoo that's permanent. And this is what it turned out like right here. That is like a terrible prison tattoo. Like if you're in prison getting a Hakuna Matata tattoo, you got bigger problems. But that is absolutely terrible. They expected to get the previous. They wanted Timon and Pumbaa forever tattooed on their body for some reason. Maybe that meant something wonderful to them, but that's not what they got. And this is especially true for another area of some people's lives, and it's called online dating. Online dating, the stigma around online dating has kind of went away. It's not really, everybody used to think it was crazy if you met somebody online. But isn't it true? Anybody, I ain't going to ask that because you might get embarrassed. If you've ever met somebody online or been on a date from online, what showed up at that coffee shop isn't what you thought it was going to be. This is a very common thing. You were expecting something like Chris Hemsworth to show up because you're like, man, this guy, he's in shape. He's got a chiseled jawline like me, and you're like, goodness gracious, this is going to be fantastic. And he shows up looking like Danny DeVito. What is this? When did you take this picture? They went on Getty Images and got a stock photo, apparently, right? But what showed up isn't what you were expecting. And one of the biggest things that messes up our plans is this word right here, interruptions. Interruptions is what messes up our plans. And isn't it true that like anything going on, you got a plan going on in your life and you have an interruption, and it messes up the entire plan. It can be something as simple as you were going home from work, you had a dinner reservations, you and your wife, on your way home from work, got a flat tire and it messed up the plans. Just something as simple as that. We have another word for interruptions, what we call a wrench, right? We say that a wrench was thrown into our plans. Anybody ever use that term? A wrench was thrown into our plans. And for some of us, the interruptions or the wrenches that were thrown into our plans were little. It was something like you were on the way, you were getting ready this morning, getting ready to come to church, and you have all your kids, you're getting them ready, and you're on time, and you got your littlest little girl getting ready, and she's got this nice dress on, and then she has a blowout and just completely messes up her dress. Okay? And you're like, man, I'm going to be late now because I got to wipe her down real good. I got to find something else to wear. Maybe it's something as small as that. Maybe it's something that small. Maybe it's something a little bit bigger. Maybe it's a little bit bigger wrench. Maybe it's something like you got laid off from your job. You had a plan, and you thought you were untouchable. You had a great job. Nothing was ever going to happen. You had job security. Then one day, your company got bought out by another company, and they started making cuts. And you had been there the longest. You were getting close to retirement, and it seems to work out that way. That's who they lay off. That interruption, that wrench got thrown into those plans and messed up your plan. For me, it was when we got married, my father-in-law getting the cancer diagnosis. That was the big wrench that was thrown into our plans. And I don't understand the plans that happen sometimes or why they go down a certain path, but I know that God has everything in control. And for some of you this morning, one of the main reasons that I want to talk about this, especially this time of year, right before we went into our sermon series on the holiday season, and it's a wonderful time of year, but a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff right now. There's a lot of interruptions going on in people's lives, and I wanted you to get a bigger picture. I wanted you to step back and stop worrying so much about the plans today. I want to talk to you. We're going to throw a little Bible at you. We try to do that from time to time here. I want to talk to you about a man named Paul. Anybody ever heard of Paul? Paul faced a lot of adversity. He faced a lot of interruptions. These are some of the things that Paul went through right here. So he was thrown unjustly in prison. Okay? He was flogged, whipped 39 times. I was whipped more than that when I was a kid. Beaten with rods, almost stoned to death, shipwrecked 3 times. Now, let me explain something to you. If I got shipwrecked one time, I'd be land-bound the rest of my life. Okay? It's kind of equivalent to if I got in a plane crash and survived, guess what Mike is not doing? Ever flying again. never getting on a plane again. I know it's a very low likelihood, but this man had bad luck apparently. He was always facing adversity. And regardless of all that stuff, Paul did not waver in his faith to God. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And I want to read and break down this verse a little bit. And I want to give you something that you can walk away with today, that if you sit here and you say, my plans have been messed up, I don't know the plan, I just don't know what's going on in my life, I want to give you something that you can leave with some hope today, okay? Romans 8:28, this is what it starts off saying. And we know that in all things God works. Now, if you don't believe that, the rest of this does you no good. Okay, the rest of this verse that I'm about to give you, if you can't believe that in all things God works, then this doesn't help you. All things, all those things that Paul went through, even in all those things, God was working in his life. Okay? He goes on and says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Everybody's always heard the saying, I don't know why bad things happen to good people. You've heard that, right? There's another one there's a step further that I'd like to take it, okay? Because I know that a lot of you probably have wondered this. I don't know, and I've thought this many times, why bad things happen to people who are Christ followers, who are doing their best to follow God, they're not perfect, but they're trying with everything they have to live a life according to God's ways. I don't know. I've always wondered why it seems like no matter how hard we try, no matter how much we go through, no matter how much we love God, how much church we get involved in, you started a small group, you go to church every Sunday, you volunteer, and bad things still happen. And it just doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair. But this right here, this next verse, is what we have to offer. This is what God has to offer you, right? This is what God has to offer you, and it's bigger than any plan. Bigger than any plan that you have for your life. And this is what it says. God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. God has something far better than a plan for your life. He has a purpose for your life. If you live your life based around a plan, you're going to be disappointed a whole lot. Plans change. People change. Circumstances change every single day. Every day, plans change. If you get so hung up on the plan and you're not looking for the purpose, your life is not going to turn out the way you want it to. Let me ask you this. Let's say you live a long, full life. You live to be about 80 to 90 years old. You were healthy. You're sitting on your deathbed. You're surrounded by family. Do you think you're going to be content with living a lot of plans or living a life full of purpose? If you're a parent, would you rather all your children's plans work out for them, or would you rather they live a life full of purpose? I'd rather live a life full of purpose. Verse 29 says this, and this is the reason why that some of these things happen to us and how we can go on and continue and keep striving. For those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. That's the purpose. The purpose is for us to be conformed, be molded to the image of God. See, this is an interruption, a wrench that got thrown into our life. But God sees this as a tool. God sees this as a tool, and all he's saying is look, I know I didn't put this on you, I didn't make this happen to you, but if you give this to me, I can use it. If you give it to me, I can use it, and I can transform your life and use this. I don't understand why my father-in-law had to die. Didn't seem like it was part of the plan. I don't know if it was part of the plan, but I know there was a purpose. There's a purpose for everything that we go through. And even if it's as simple as me giving this to God and saying, you know what? I'm going to use that story. I'm going to use my experience because somebody may be going through the same thing right now. I'm here to tell you that if you give this to God, if you give it to God, He can use it to transform your life. It's not going to be easy. Nobody said the plan's going to go exactly how you want. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really care about the plan. That's where I'm at in my life. Don't get so hung up on the plan. Stay in line with God's purpose for your life. Everything that goes on in your life, everything that goes on, God can use. Give it to Him. He can use it. This Christmas, for a lot of people, Christmas is their favorite time of the year. My father-in-law actually passed away on Christmas Day. This will be 5 years ago this Christmas, December 25th, 2014. And it's a rough time of year for us. And I'm gonna tell you, last year, 2018, was the first year that me and my wife really felt like celebrating Christmas. So whenever you see me put my Christmas tree up super early, mind your own business, number one. But number two, I see that going around. It's not even you don't know what people's been through. I'm happy my wife wants to celebrate Christmas, and we both feel like celebrating Christmas. So we got our Christmas tree up. But Christmas has always, it's been rough for us the past couple of years. And the beginning of our marriage, it was very strained, it was very stressful, and it wasn't because of a lack of love between us. We had a good relationship, but it was just hard. That was not the plan. That was not the plan that we had for our life. But God saw something different. God, I don't believe God gave my father-in-law cancer. I'm not one of those people that believes that. But there's a lot of stuff that's our plans have changed. Our plans are constantly changing, and we don't get so hung up on when a plan gets messed up anymore. When you've been through something like that, you kind of learn, you're like, me and my wife, she kind of started this saying, whenever something was going bad, she'd always say, it's not cancer. Give you a little bit of perspective. Whenever something bad's going on, she'd say, nobody's got cancer. And so it's a little easier to sit back when a plan gets messed up and say something like that and realize that there is a bigger purpose for our life. When life interrupts the plan, look for God's purpose. So this is what I'm going to ask you right now. What interruptions are you going through right now that God can use you to conform you to His image or to mold you to His image? Right now, everybody in the room has something going on in your life, big or small, that God can use to draw you closer to Him and to make you more like Him. Everybody has something. So as we finish today, I'm going to ask you three things to consider. Okay, if you're new here, if you're not, you've been coming for a while, this is what I want you to consider. The first thing is, would you consider letting God be your good, loving Father? Okay, that's number one. Would you consider it? I'm not asking you to definitely do it. Just think about it. Would you consider allowing God to work a bigger purpose in your life? If you don't know God, it's going to be hard for you to have a bigger purpose. There's people that do amazing, wonderful things with their life, and they still feel unfulfilled. You know why? Because they didn't live for a purpose. If you live for a purpose, your life will be full of fulfillment. Okay? And the plans may change every single day. But if you look towards that purpose, your life will stay on track with what God has for you. The second thing is this: would you consider believing the life He wants to give you is better than the one that you have for yourself? Would you consider believing that? Would you consider believing that the purpose that God has for your life is better than the one that you had for yours? And lastly, this week, would you consider allowing God to use the interruptions in your life to conform you to His image? If everybody would, please stand with me. Bow your heads and close your eyes. This morning, I know a lot of people, for a lot of people, the holiday season is rough. For my family, the past 5 years, it's always still a struggle. For a lot of us, the holiday season reminds us that some of our loved ones aren't here. It reminds us of family that we no longer have, and bad memories of different things and people that we miss that we wish were here. And for others of us, this time of year, it's hard because of the jobs that we have. Maybe they're not working out the way that we thought they were. Maybe we've lost a job. Maybe our families are split because of a divorce. That was an interruption that was thrown in our life. But if we're always worrying about the plan, if we're always so focused on the plan, we're going to always be disappointed. We're always going to be upset. We're always going to live a life where we feel like we have no purpose. Things change, circumstances change, life throws you curveballs all the time. Right when you think you've got it figured out, it can get messed up in an instant. All it takes is one phone call to change everything that you thought you knew. And today, I want you, if you leave with nothing else, I want you to leave knowing that the plan doesn't matter. The plan doesn't matter. It's the purpose that's important. If you have your life centered on God and you live for a purpose, the plans, they become second nature. They go in the background. You're not so focused on them. So right now, this is what I want to do. I want us to pray. And as we leave here today, I want us, as we go through this holiday season, to be looking for interruptions as they come up in our life. To be looking and be able to say, God, how can you use this? How can you take this interruption, this wrench that's in my life right now, and how can you conform me, mold me, use this tool to change me and draw me closer to you? Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. I thank you for all the interruptions. I thank you for your love, your mercy, your grace. And God, I pray for the people in here right now that are struggling. I pray for the people, Lord, that they feel like their plans are all messed up. They had a plan and things are happening and they can't figure out what's going on. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn. God, I pray, Lord, that you'll show them that they have a life that's meant to be lived for a greater purpose. Lord, help us to not be so fixated on the plans and help us to be fixated on the purpose. In Jesus' name we pray, and we thank you for it. In Jesus' name.